welcome to Colganology on what is a very, very blustery day. And this will be my last video of 2023. And it's a bit of a magazine, I suppose, of bits and pieces, an assemblage. So we're going to kick off in Soho, where I went in to see some of my friends for a sort of Christmas drink and to enjoy some mellow jazz.
If you say so, I have to pack my things and go. Hit the road, and don't you go back no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, and don't you go back no more.
Okay, so this is Soho at 10 o'clock at night. As you can see, it's as busy as a lot of towns are during the day. It's absolutely mental. Look at that. How many people are wandering around here? It's just as busy as it ever is. It's mad, people everywhere. Hello there, bit of a bitty video today. Today I've brought you here. BNU, you say, what's that? What's this massive blue building? This is Buxton University in High Wycombe. And it's where I work. It's quite modern, it's quite nice. Oh yes, my life isn't all swanning around fields with a pug, you know. Sometimes I've actually got to do some work. These lovely murals. By a friend of mine called Dan, I'll put a link in the description. He did these to celebrate the town around the time of the millennium, I think it was done. Now, I'll be the first to admit that Wycombe isn't the nicest town in the Chilterns. It suffers terribly from a lack of investment. But it's a pretty little town, and it's a nice little town. And it's the nearest town to where I live. I live about 2.5, 3 miles away. And there's some quite interesting stuff here. I'll show you some. This tiny little unassuming lane, and the buildings aren't that old. They're only sort of like early 20th century, late 19th. This is called Bull Lane, and the only interesting thing to say about this little road is this is the old High Street. Back in the days when, before they built the High Street we got now, this was the High Street, and High Wycombe was one of the, it wasn't called High Wycombe then, it was called Chepping Wycombe, but it was the one of the stopovers if you were doing a long ride or a long walk from the north of England and the Midlands down towards London. There was a stopover. There were a lot of coaching inns here, for example. And this old High Street, this narrow bit we're walking down, it's interesting to note that Shakespeare would have walked down this road, because he once described walking through here on a coach stop, basically, on his way from Stratford-on-Avon to London, and he passed through here, so he would have gone down that lane. There's a thought, eh? Kind of see a remnant of one of the old coaching places here with that bit that's sticking out over the street, although the buildings either side are fairly modern. You can see that there's a big gap there where the coaches could have gone through behind. And the building itself is quite interesting. I don't know whether you can see on the roof there. You've got the word peace at one end, and then hen and chickens across the front. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Peace were chemists. They owned a chemist shop, if I remember correctly. And he turned a tidy profit, and as a result he decided that what he would do was he would extend the building up by a floor, so he had an extra story built on top. And because it had those eaves, those bits on the top of the building there, he decided to put up there peace and the date that the extension was done, and hen and chickens, which is what he used to call his wife and kids. There's also this place that says Pops on it, and that little unassuming building, which is now a Subway, also has a bit of history to it, because that was a newsagent that basically led to the Sunday trading laws being changed. He was a newsagent who would open despite being constantly fined so that people could get their newspapers, and the profit he made from being the only newsagents open meant that basically he could afford all the fines. And ultimately he led the campaign, he led the revolt to get Sunday opening times changed so that people could actually open their shops on a Sunday. Not all shops, you know. We'd ended up with a bizarre situation where they said newsagents was okay, so you could buy a Sunday Times and you could actually buy a porn mag on a Sunday, but you couldn't buy a Bible because the bookshops weren't allowed to be opened. Very, very odd. Hello, pigeons. There are lots of little architectural features that show the town. This was a butcher's. It's now a mobile phone shop. You can see the sheep and the pigs, and if you go across the top of the building here, you get the pigs and the sheep again. It's rather nice, isn't it? A quick cup of Earl Grey tea in the front room cafe, and then home for a dog walk, I think. Well, there you go, a little glimpse of High Wycombe. As I said, it's a nice little town. It could be so much nicer with a bit of investment though. Windy baubles, but only one bauble down. So far, I will pick it up and rehang it. Now, as some of you know, I used to be one of the writers of the TV show QI. I was one of the QI elves, as Stephen Fry liked to call us. I did that job for nearly a decade, 9 and something years, and a fantastic time. Also worked on Museum of Curiosity, QI's sister show on Radio 4, and was around as the start of the podcast, No Such Thing as a Fish, and actually appeared on an early episode. Can't remember which one now, about episode 5, episode 6, something like that. And as you may also know or not know, the various series of QI are themed around a particular letter. It's like we started right at the beginning with Series A. So all of the questions, all of the themes for that series were based around the letter A. So, you know, there'd be an episode on armour and armourers. And then all the questions within that show would be to do with armourers or armour. But would all have a kind of A theme to the questions as well. It's quite a tricky thing to pull off, and I'm not quite sure why John Lloyd decided it was a good idea when he came up with the idea for the show. And talk about optimistic, he thought, well, we're going to get 26 series out of this. But it must be said, they have currently finished filming and are starting to show Series U, and Series V starts next year. So I think he might well get to the end of the alphabet, which is pretty extraordinary. But anyway, the show is a joy to write, and it's a joy to be involved in, and you get to work with some amazing people. The trickiest script to write every year is the Christmas show, because the Christmas show has to be themed upon the year's letter, but of course all the years preceding it have used up a lot of the really interesting Christmas facts. So by the time it got round to me writing the Christmas show, which was in the M series, when it was my turn to write it, you know, looking back over the various years that had gone before from A to L, I realised that an awful lot of material had been used, but we still managed to find some. Anyway, we're having a script meeting at the old QI headquarters in Covent Garden, and one of my colleagues, the wonderful Justin Pollard, suggested that maybe we should do something about Victorian parlour games, because some of them are really quite bizarre. I mean, one of the ones that stands out for me was one called Bullet Pudding that he described to us, and what people used to do is get a live bullet, I mean this is genuine, get a live bullet and bury it under a small hill of flour, and then what you had to do is with your hand tied behind your back, or with your hands behind your back, a bit like apple bobbing, you had to get the bullet out of this pile of flour. I mean, there was no way we were going to be able to do that on the show, you know, health and safety. Plus of course all these stars, all the people on the show were covered in stage makeup, so consequently it would stick to them and they just turned into a gluey mess. We thought, no, can't do that. But there were some other good ones, and we discussed them. So I went away and I got a book on Victorian parlour games, and the book was called Are You There, Moriarty? Here it is. Now, what struck me about the title, and indeed the game, is Are You There, Moriarty, was how funny it would be getting comedians to do this. Now, I had to fight a little bit to get this into the show, because some of the other elves were of the opinion that it wasn't fact-based, it was just a bit of silliness, a bit of slapstick, and was that really right for the show? But I fought for it, and John Lloyd thought it was worth giving it a run, and I'm delighted to say it ended up as being one of the most requested clips of all time in the history of the show, which I'm absolutely delighted about. Due to copyright, I can't show you the whole thing, but I can show you a couple of small clips which I think YouTube will let me get away with. Here you are.
Left hand held.
Give me your hand.
Left hand,
Left
yeah.
hand held.
Okay.
Okay, go.
Are you there, Moriarty?
Yes!
Shall I try again?
You try again, now, Susan.
Sorry, what you meant.
Right.
Go on. Are you there, Moriarty?
Yes.
Now try to escape. Just one hit.
I don't want to turn.
Another fun thing that happened with this show is that Sandy Togsvig, who'd taken over as host by this time, had a set of Danish elf hats, or Nisa, Danish Nisa hats, made for her and the 4 cast members. And here they are in a publicity store wearing these hats. Lovely things. And they wore them at the beginning of the show and for the publicity shots. And we got the show recorded, we got it all done. And at the end of the show, Sandy said, and this is for you, Steve. And I've got one of the Nissa hats, and here's mine. Isn't it great? Of course, it makes me look like a garden gnome, but isn't it great? Well, I've managed to find a spot out of the wind in which I can say to you, have a fantastic Christmas, or however you celebrate this time of year. And here's looking forward to 2024 and a brilliant new year for all of us. God knows we could do with a break, couldn't we? And something really positive and good to happen. So yes, a fantastic holidays. Be with your loved ones and have a fantastic time. And I'll see you all in the new year. Toodle pip. Bye bye.